Good evening, Iowa City. What's going on? You're chilling with That 70s Guy on KRUI Radio at 89.7 FM. How was everyone's weekend? I'm sure it was awkward for some since Easter happened to land on 4/20 this year. I had a fantastic Easter feast with Izzy's family and will now be living off of leftover ham for the next week. Today I'm playing some songs in celebration of 4/20, just one day off, but fortunately it will land on a Monday next year. Now before we get into these songs, it's important to understand what was going on in America at the time of their release. Now bear with me here. In October of 1970, President Richard Nixon had signed the Controlled Substances Act into law, which categorized marijuana as a Schedule I narcotic, the most severe classification reserved for substances with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Being caught with any amount of weed at that time could land you 10 years in prison. Later, in 1972, Nixon formed the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse to study the issue. The commission released its report, which unanimously agreed decriminalizing the personal possession and use of marijuana. Nixon, having elected most of these researchers himself, ignored their recommendations and doubled down in his war on drugs. John Ehrlichman, Nixon's domestic policy advisor, revealed this jaw-dropping quote in 1994 to journalist Dan Baum. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. The first time I heard this information, I was floored. It's insane. Richard Nixon truly was the worst thing that ever happened to this country. Fitting this theme, my first song for today is Don't Step on the Grass, Sam by Steppenwolf.
The 70s guy?
Yeah. Oh, come on, play for me. What's going on?
How you doing?
Doing good.
I always love your intros for songs, dude.
Thanks. That was Illegal Smile by John Prine. Next up is perhaps the Doors' most iconic song, it's Light My Fire. The song saw contributions from every band member, and when they performed the song at live concerts, Ray Manzarek played the song's bass line with his left hand on a Fender Rhodes piano bass, while performing the main keyboard lines on a Vox Continental using his right hand. What a G. Light My Fire was performed live by the Doors on the Ed Sullivan Show broadcast on September 17th of 1967. The Doors were asked by producer Bob Precht, Ed Sullivan's son-in-law, to change the line, "Girl, we couldn't get much higher," as the sponsors were uncomfortable with the possible reference to drugs. The band agreed to do so and did a rehearsal using the amended lyrics, "Girl, we couldn't get much better." However, during the live performance, Jim Morrison sang the original, unaltered lyrics. Sullivan did not shake Morrison's hand as he left the stage, and a multi-episode deal involving the band was cancelled. Typical Jim Morrison. That was... Ooh. What was that? Smokin' by Boston, and you're listening to That 70s Guy on KRUI Radio at 89.7 FM. Next up is a tune from the Beatles' 1966 album, Revolver. Got to Get You Into My Life. Though it was credited to Lennon-McCartney, Paul recollects writing the song soon after being introduced to pot. After listening to the lyrics, it actually makes a lot of sense. Have a listen. That was Kaya by Bob Marley and the Wailers. Now, next up is Hi 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 by Wings. In the UK, the song was banned by the BBC for its sexually suggestive lyrical content. The BBC also assumed that the title phrase, "We're gonna get high, high, high," was a drug reference. The specific lyrics objected to is the apparent phrase, Get you ready for my body gun. McCartney has said that the correct lyrics are get you ready for my polygon, an abstract image, and later, McCartney said, the BBC got some of the words wrong, but I suppose it is a bit of a dirty song if sex is dirty and naughty. I was in a sensuous mood in Spain when I wrote it. Now that's just funny. Alright, here it is. That was a live performance of Mary Jane by Janis Joplin. Next is another anti-Nixon tune named Mexico by Jefferson Airplane. It was released as a single and only made its way onto compilation albums. The song criticizes Operation Intercept, an anti-drug measure engaged by President Richard Nixon from 21 of September to 11th of October 1969 that resulted in a near shutdown of border crossings between Mexico and the United States. Just another reason to hate Nixon. 5 months after the release of Mexico, Nixon requested that songs relating to drug abuse not be broadcast. Typical. Anyways, here's the song. That's all I have for today. This has been That 70s Guy, and you're listening to KRUI Radio at 89.7 FM. Spread love and peace out.